Well, X is down, so no wonder we got way less viewers in here right now. I was like, what's going on? And then I realized like nothing's working on Twitter. Unfortunate. I can't even switch accounts on X. I don't know what's going on there. So we'll see what happens with this stream. Okay, let's see here. Everybody, yeah, get like the the YouTube, like we're gonna have way less viewers because X is down. So it's kind of insane how like nothing's working on Twitter right now. Good afternoon, Cougs. What's up, Patrick? What's up, Kane? Let me pull up the chat so you guys can see everybody chatting. I know you guys probably can't on YouTube, but let's see. All right, question. 10 to 11 games into the high school season. What are some things standing out to you so far through the season? You know, it's funny. So I was talking to Ron Slusher, who's head of the Ohio Warhawks, yesterday. I'm going to be going up to his facility up there in Ohio and talking with his organization with a few other guys, actually a few other big league, like some big league guys. And we were just talking about it, the funny, coaching high school has been really good for me because obviously for like the last 15 years of my life until this point, I've really been surrounded by college players at a high level, right? So like college players at a high level. And then I've been again around the professional game. So when you're away from high school for so long, you kind of don't understand like how much different you have to coach high school players than college players than professional players. And they're just not as good at, and again, it makes sense. They're just not as good as making adjustments. They take longer to make adjustments. You have to be much more fundamentally coaching them now. Like, how far do you get off a base get off of first base on a fly ball with less than 2 outs? Like, it's stuff like that where they just, these guys, they just think, oh, you just get halfway off every time, and the ball sits like the left center gap in the wall, and they're like 20 feet off first base, and you're just like, no, that's not how it works. You better be on top of second base or even a little bit past second base there. So it's interesting how much different everything is. But that's what I would say is like, there's just so much. You have to focus way more on the fundamentals in high school than you do anywhere else. I mean, and again, you have to do that more in college now as well. But in high school, it's very adjustments are very hard for kids to make. And I think it's even more difficult now as well because you got so many of these Instagram coaches and these swing coaches that have like literally never played the game. And so they're like telling these kids things. And, you have a lot of high school kids who have not really grown into their actual man body and strong enough to swing. And they're getting taught to swing like they're, again, a big league hitter. They hit the ball in the air. That's what they're doing in the big leagues. And it's like, man, your average exit velocity is like 86. You're just out every time. You hit the ball in the air, you're out every time. So you're fighting that a lot. Like, one of the things I've told a lot of the kids at the school I'm helping out is that, like, know who you are. Like, you're not a power home run guy yet. Like, even on these fields that are like 360 to center field and like 305 down the line, which you're not going to see that anywhere in college baseball. Um, like there may be some outlier places, but 355, 360 in the outfield, you ain't going to see that anywhere. 350, 345 in the outfield, some of these places that we play. So, like, you need to be hitting line drives, and it gets back to like the Jim Rice thing, which I made a video about today. It'll probably come out maybe tomorrow. Like Jim Rice's whole thing was like, let's just hit line drives first. Like, let's become a hitter first. And then you got iPad guy telling a Hall of Famer, like, hey, Jim, like, shut up. That's not what we teach guys. I know you're in the Hall of Fame and everything, but like, there's Jim, the Hall of Famer. He's over there telling him to hit line drives. We don't want to hit line drives anymore. It's just like you can't even make it up. Patrick, I agree. I was surprised how little IQ and fundamentals are taught from youth through high school ball. I see it with my son and his peers. Yeah, what I was talking to Slush about, but I talk about this with everybody, is that it's amazing how bad these kids are coached at the fundamentals. Like they're not even informed of fundamentals. So they get to college and you're like, hey, when you don't have to throw it to home just because there's a runner on second on a base hit if you're not going to have a shot at throwing him out, and they overthrow the cut. And again, they went to like you watch some of these kids in high school in pregame in and out. They're just throwing it 30 feet over the cutoff, man. And the coach doesn't say a word. And my outfielders do that. I'm just like immediately yelling, get it down. Right. And they know you mess that up a couple times, you're in trouble. And so it's stuff like that where like kids are just not held accountable as well. They're not held accountable to doing things the right way. And you get what you kind of see now across the spectrum of a multitude of different things in the game. Whether that's the antics you see on the field, whether that's, again, making the wrong throws, not knowing what the play is with a runner at first and third. And like, it's just, you see it across the game. Like kids just don't pay attention. So it's, it's got to swing back. Like people got to start again, like you want to be an elite player, man, just like know what to do when the balls hit your way. And you'll be head and shoulders above a lot of people. Most fields down here are 290 to 300. Doral Academy is powerhouse down here. It's 250 feet, left field center. No. No way, dude. 250 feet? That's not right. That's not right, Canes. 250 feet means like there's 20 home runs hit a game. There's no way it's 250 feet. I promise you, Canes, that's hard for me to believe. Hard for me to believe. That is very hard for me to believe. 250 feet is like to center field. I mean, it's like, I don't even know where, like, how do you even play outfield? That's why Mikey Torres, who was a freshman, isn't doing good. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know how you evaluate someone on a 250-foot field like that. I'm going to look up. I'm going to look it up right here, and we'll find out. Doral, is it Doral? I know, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Google Maps. But like if they have pictures of the field and it says 250 on it. All right, let's go to Google Maps. All right, Doral Academy. It's on a canal. Is it baseball Doral? All right, Doral Academy Preparatory School. I'm guessing that's it. All right, here's Doral Academy Preparatory School. Where is the baseball field, Canes? I'm going to pull this up. We're going to solve this. All right, so if this is Doral Academy Prep, where's the baseball field? Right next to Dolphin Mall. All right, let's look up Dolphin Mall. Dolphin Mall. Wait, where is Dolphin Mall? Canes? Doral Academy. I'm guessing it's preparatory school, which is right here. Oh, wait. In between the two buildings next to the canal right here. You guys, how did you guys find it? I can't find it. They have easily 10 to 12 D1 players through 2028 and 2 top 10 28 players. I'm not a top. Patrick, where is it in regards to the school? The school is. All right, here you go. Oh, okay, so okay, it's right here against this canal. I'm not getting baseball field on here though. $256 in the right field, dude. That's insane though. Like the thing is, Kane's 275 is like insanely shallow. 256, I don't like. I still almost can't believe it. All right, well, I'm boomering the Google Maps right now. But we will let's get to business. I'm trying to confirm if I have the right school. I mean, if it's on this map right here, this is that's Doral College. Satellite view. Dude, you're gonna have to tell me how to do that, man. I'm not kidding, bro. I'm like a boomer now. Like it's crazy. You know, like your parents, when you tell them things when you're young, you're like, man, they don't understand. And now I'm at that age where like they're like, hey, put it in satellite mode. I'm like, where do I go? Not there. Kyle, you got to switch satellite view and then you can measure from point A. No, I know you can do that. I just don't know how to switch to satellite mode, man. Am I missing something here? No, I don't want to do that. They are a top 15 team in the nation according to Max Preps. I don't doubt it, man. I just think it's going to be. Kyle can't use Google Maps. Good God. Shut up, Dusty. Oh man, it's right. Yeah, hey, I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm boomering out right now. We're looking at it's okay, so it's 340. We're looking at this field in Miami. Dusty, long story short, I'll close the stream because I'm, embarrassing myself. But Doral Academy in Miami, Canes told us it's like 250 across the entire field. So that sounds ridiculous. So we were checking that out. But let's look at review of the past weekend. So frustrating to watch, Kyle. Yeah, sorry. Apologize for that. Apologize. Let's see. All right, so the new top 25. We'll look through here. I love it. I'm 45 and I'm teaching somebody about technology. Oh God, that's tough, man. That's tough. That's tough for me. I was hoping you were going to say like 25, Patrick, but dang. Just click the little photo in the bottom left. Yeah. Dan, Dan Dosky, what school are you from? All right. So like I told you guys, I think even though probably Tennessee has played the best so far this start the year, and they're undefeated, like D1 baseball is not going to downgrade LSU as long as they go undefeated. So LSU is still at number one, even though probably Tennessee is the best team right now. And I mean, you got 4 SEC teams in the top 4. Georgia at number 4, Florida State number 5, Carolina at number 6 after losing the series to Stanford. The biggest matchup of the weekend coming up is going to be Tennessee, Florida. And again, we'll find out. Again, like Canes, you may see, Canes for you, if Florida takes 2 or 3 from Tennessee, you're feeling good about that one win against Florida. You're feeling pretty good about it. You're feeling better. But yeah, I agree. Tennessee is I think number 1 right now. Just like total, they're firing on all cylinders. And I think we'll look at Georgia a little bit today because they are killing it. They're 18-1. They got the most wins in the top 25. I don't know if that they're just playing a bunch of extra games. I don't know how they have 19 games. Canes ain't feeling good about much, man. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to help him out. He's got something to look for. 1,000 times more about baseball than I ever could, so we'll call it even. That sounds good to me, man. My son plays at Benjamin and Palm Beach Gardens. Canes, I'll let you guys have that conversation. Okay. So let's look at some winners and losers from this week. Obviously, Carolina is a loser. Highest ranked team in the ACC, and they get beat at home by Stanford. I think Stanford's just better than a lot of people expected. Again, how? Their Sunday guys throwing mid to upper 90s. I don't know, how do you underrate that team? But their offense looked great. Pitching staff did really well, except for Saturday they got blown out. But you take 2 or 3 from the number 1 ranked team in the ACC. That's a hell of a way to start your ACC play. Most teams did really well this weekend. A&M still A&M goes 3-2. The thing is, if A&M wasn't preseason number 1, they wouldn't be ranked right now. And really, they probably shouldn't be ranked with how they've played. Miami is not the biggest loser of the weekend. No way. But, A&M is still they have a rough week. You go 3-2. They're 9-6. That's tough. A lot of splits on the week, including the midweek. Troy ends up winning the series against USC Upstate. Southern Miss wins their series. Virginia, another loser, loses to Boston College at home. If you guys remember, Virginia was number 2 to start the year. So our number 1 and number 2 teams have fallen dramatically in the rankings in just 15 games of play, and 14 for Virginia. Yeah, I'm also a little surprised, Dusty. I thought they're right on the edge, though. I think if they win this weekend as well, win the midweek, and again, Georgia State's playing really well. We'll look at their team as well because Georgia State's playing really well. They're scoring a lot of runs. But I think they're right on the edge. They have a good week this week. They'll be in there. Obviously, it takes some turmoil in the bottom part of the top 25. We'll look at A&M's schedule, who they got. We'll look at Virginia. But some of these teams are, they have a down week or just a split week. You could see, I think, Georgia Tech make it back into the top 25. Stanford jumps all the way to 18 after not being ranked. So Alabama got its first loss of the year. Now the only two undefeated teams in the top 25 are I think left in the country are Tennessee and Florida State. So let's look at some of these schedules coming up. Remember, any questions like recruiting wise and stuff, guys, don't hesitate to ask. Obviously, this is the premier matchup of the weekend right here. Florida, Tennessee. That's too much. This is going to be a big matchup. The premier matchup of the weekend. Kentucky's still playing pretty good. This will be a good matchup. Like, hey, don't sleep on the Boston College down at Florida State. I think Florida State, with their pitching, it's going to be tough to beat them any day of the week. I know 64 Analytics. We'll jump over to 64 Analytics as well. They were going to drop their 25 first rankings of the year, but with X being down, we'll see if we can find it. So we'll look at those in a second. Vandy, Auburn. Again, you'll have some turmoil in the top 25, right? Because if Auburn, you won't see much movement if either of these teams get lose one, like 2 or 3. But if one of them gets swept, you could see like Auburn drop out. Obviously, we got the Miami Wake series. Miami looking for that bounce back in Winston-Salem. North Carolina looking for a bounce back in Louisville. Alabama and A&M. And again, A&M's now at 19. So you see A&M have a tough weekend. They could be out of the top 25. These rankings are not updated on this schedule yet. The Troy, Louisiana series will be a great one. Virginia at Cal. I mean, Virginia's looking for a bounce back. This will be a good series. Grand Canyon and Oregon. Let's look here. Canes, another question, Kyle. 25 and 26 kids. What is their process now if they are having really good high school seasons? Will big schools still be interested in them? For 25s, I mean, right now, if you're a 25, you're looking JUCO and lower level. There's always the case that, like Von Lackey, for example, Georgia Tech, he committed in his senior year, but with these roster changes and anything for 25s, there's almost going to be nothing out there for you. So you're looking JUCO, you're looking lower levels if you're a 25. 26, there's still going to be spots open. Albeit not a lot, but certainly, like, especially with pitchers in the 26 class, if you have take a big jump and you're pitching well in the summer, there will be still some big schools looking, and certainly a lot of D1 schools looking. Position players, again, it's just way more difficult. So position players, you better really play a defensive premium position, or just, I mean, one of the best. You better be one of the best hitters if you're a corner guy, because corner guys in the outfield and the infield are getting crushed in the portal. What do Power Four teams look for in a pitching transfer from a mid to lower end mid major? Well, they're looking, Kevin, a lot of times they're looking for either a back end bullpen guy or a legitimate weekend starter. So if you're at a mid major and you're throwing, they're looking for stuff, right? They're looking for a combination of stuff and strike throwers. You don't want to bring in a transfer typically that has command issues, because then really you're going, well, we just hope he can throw more strikes. You don't want to bring in anyone as a pitcher that you're kind of hoping that they make an adjustment in command, because command's the hardest thing to make adjustments with. So with pitching transfers to the power four, they're looking for overall stuff and guys that can throw strikes. And again, you're not really looking for to add, a tier 2 piece or a tier 3 piece in the bullpen. You're looking for guys that can come in right away and be a dependable arm is what you're really looking for. And then you can fill the rest of them with high school guys that are going to be either good, maybe tier 1, tier 2 guy out of the bullpen. And by tier 1, what I mean is a guy who's going to be a dependable back end of the bullpen, or like a Mason Patel type he's kind of your bridge guy who's really good. So it's guys who are going to pitch a lot. And to pitch a lot, you have to have a combination of stuff and strike throwing ability. Right? You're just not going to pitch a lot at the power four level if you can't throw strikes. Generally speaking. Doesn't mean there won't be guys that are in that spot, right? We know that. But if you're looking, again, when you're looking to add pitchers, you're looking for stuff that plays at the power four level and guys that can throw a good amount of strikes. And like our coach Kay says with position players, the more utility you offer as a defender, you can play multiple positions, you can play in the outfield, you can play in the infield. It just makes you way more attractive as a player. All right, so let's go down the ACC. Like Georgia Tech plays Pitt at home. They do play Georgia State tomorrow, who's played really well. So that's going to be a tough midweek. But Pittsburgh, again, this is out like the Virginia Tech series. It was like obviously going to be a split type series where you're going to go 2 of 3. Like you weren't really projecting a sweep by any team. Virginia Tech did have the opportunity to sweep, right? Georgia Tech came back and won the game or took the lead in the 9th inning in both of their wins. But this is a series where Georgia Tech realistically has a good chance has a chance of sweeping. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it's a realistic chance. But if Georgia Tech wins tomorrow and wins 2 of 3 against Pittsburgh, I think they inch their way into the top 25. Kyle, is there some benefit to reclassifying down a year? What's the point? Maybe you did a video on this. Yeah, I think I've done a video on it, but there is a benefit. Usually, like if you're a really young player in your grade, I think some people think it's like, oh, well, I'll just reclass and I'll have way more opportunity. It's like, well, if your talent level is still the same, you're still going to end up in the same spot. But if you're a really young kid and you haven't really hit that like physicality growth spurt where you're filling out your body, reclassifying can help. But it's one of those things that I think it's overblown in the travel ball space right now. Like it's happening. You're seeing it happen a lot. And to me, the advantage is you get an extra year of development. But if it matters how you spend that year of development, right? If you're not really working hard and turning yourself into, again, a totally different player, you're not going to see a massive benefit of it. So again, it's just a matter of how hard are you working, right? And if you're, if you're a junior right now and you're thinking about reclassing, like if you're going to do that, you better be putting the work in every day to make yourself, again, a significantly better player. Because if you're not doing that and you just think, well, I'm going to reclass, now there's more options. Like, yeah, but everyone's seen you now. And if you're not any different really of a player, you're not going to see any different results, typically. Duke Stanford, this will be a really good series with how Stanford played against UNC. Like this is, again, Stanford now is the number 18 in the country. Stanford, and again, Duke was a preseason top 10 team in the country, and now they're outside of the top 25. So this will be a good series. Coach K, reclassification is the softest thing I've ever seen. Yeah, again, it's just like I think kids and parents see the good story that happens with the guy that reclasses, but they don't see like the 90% of it where nothing really changed. You know what I mean? So if you're thinking about doing that, there are except there are times when it makes sense. But again, it all just comes down to, like, if you're going to do that, you better be spending that extra year of time very wisely and putting in the work. All right. So let's change what we're looking at here. Let's look at 65 analytics in their top 25. Okay. So compared to D1 base, I'm just going to compare this to D1 baseball's top 25. So there's some significant differences in D1 baseball's rankings than 64 analytics. And 64 analytics, again, is looking at strength of schedule, nothing but data, the teams they've faced. So they have Tennessee at number 1, Florida at number 2. They have Mississippi State as number 3. Just for reference, Mississippi State's not even in the top 25 for D1 baseball. Or let me make sure I have the right one here. Okay, that's not their updated one. Let me get D1 baseball's updated top 25. Again, Mississippi State is not even in the updated top 25 for D1 baseball, but they're number 3 for 64 analytics. Yeah, they have Miami as number 23, right? LSU's 24, Arkansas is 25. So the SEC sweeps the top 5. Oregon at 6, Alabama at 7, Florida State at 8. I think this only has to do with the fact that Florida State's strength of schedule is like 202. Kentucky's at 9. Kentucky is not even ranked by D1 baseball. Virginia Tech is at 10. So what surprises me is Virginia Tech's at 10. They just lost a series to Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech is not in here. So interesting, right? Texas is at 11. Wake Forest is at 12. Purdue is at 13. UCF is at 14. OU is at 15. Someone help me out with this logo. I don't even know what logo this is. Vandy at 17. Auburn at 18. Georgia's at 19. And I think, again, it comes back to their strength of schedule. Georgia is like tops in the country in home runs, and they're really driving the ball. South Carolina's at 20. Clemson at 21. They're ranked way lower than they are by D1 baseball. Kansas at 22. Miami at 23. Baylor at 24. And Western Kentucky at 25. So I think there's definitely some suspect things about these rankings, for sure. I'm interested to see what your guys' thoughts are, because I think they have Tennessee right. I think they have Florida closer to what they are, like probably a top 5 team. Mississippi State at 3 is crazy, Yeah, maybe that's San Francisco. Kyle, can you do a short weekly player profile assessment like you have with Burris? Choose a player from a different team weekly. I'd like to hear your opinion on Josiah Cromwick. Okay, we can do that. We can definitely do that. Canes is really loving these rankings because Miami's at 23. I think an explanation, maybe they have it in here. Let's see. One impact. Okay, so here's their explanation for Mississippi State. One impact of Mississippi State's numbers is the most significant effect of the data. Their objective metrics. Statistically, they've been dominant, which, if inaccurate, will even out once conference play starts. So if you're looking at the metrics for Mississippi State, they're in like the really high percentile in all their pitching, except for walk percentage. They're at like the 80th percentile. And then hitting, they're in a pretty high, their OPS is 1,000. The Mississippi State's whip as a team is 104. So you look at, they're really what looks like 64 Analytics is really preferring your OPS differential, your pitchers like OPS against you. Like they're striking out 35% of batters, which is like top percentile in the country. They're walking 10%. This is their K to walk ratio, their WHIP, and their fielding independent pitching. So Mississippi State, while their record doesn't really show it, the metrics are saying they're a much better team than the record's showing. So again, remember, this is what 64 Analytics is doing. This guy, Tyler Padgett, do you even look at this before posting? Bro, this is arguably the worst ranking to ever grace Twitter. Southeast Louisiana regional host. Let's make it happen. So this is Southeast Louisiana here at 16. Western Kentucky is 15-1 to start. So, there are some teams that are really loving these rankings, like Canes. I'm still surprised that Virginia Tech. Again, it's like this is purely based off metrics, right? It's not based off their record. Like record has nothing to do with it, and it's like I get that, but at some point, like you have to win games to be good, right? If you're metrically you're very good, but you're playing 500 ball, maybe you're not as good as the metrics say, and that's what that's what their caveat is here. Statistically, they've been dominant, which, if inaccurate, will even out once conference play starts. So they're saying once conference play starts, if these metrics are kind of inflated, we'll find out, and then they won't play as good in conference. But interesting, these rankings are interesting. I do think, while Virginia Tech maybe not number 10 in the country right now, they are way better than people think. And again, Miami, I said the same thing. I think Miami's way better than is definitely better than more people think. So interesting stuff there. So let's look at let's look back at the schedule here. And who A&M opens up against. So A&M against A&M and Alabama this weekend is going to be really good because, again, and it's at A&M, with how A&M's been playing, just realistically, you're like, Alabama's probably the favorite there, even at home. Let's look at Georgia State. Let's look at Georgia State's numbers, who Georgia Tech will be playing tomorrow. That is not what we're trying to find there. Okay, can we actually look at there we go. Okay, let's zoom this in for you guys. All right, so as a team, Georgia State is OPSing over 1,000. In 16 games, they've scored 163 runs, so they're scoring 10 runs a game. They have 74 extra base hits in 16 games. So they're hitting a lot of extra base hits. They have way more walks than strikeouts. They have 131 walks to 113 strikeouts. So walking at a really high rate. And again, I mean, they're OPSing over 1,000 as a team. So offensively, like, they're going to mash. Let's see what the pitching looks like. Pitching has been not great. 1.6 whip or 1.7 whip, really. 6.28 ERA. They've given up a lot of hits. They've struck out a decent amount of guys. They're walking kind of right at 1 every 2 innings. Opponent batting average 282. So again, they're 12-4. Let's look at their schedule so far. So they've played Belmont. They swept Belmont. UT Martin 2 out of 3. They beat Kennesaw State 14-4. They played Georgia really close, lost 3-7. Alabama A&M they swept. Alabama State they crushed. Played Georgia again, lost 16-10. So they played Georgia really close twice. and then they took 2 of 3 from Western Carolina this past weekend. So Georgia State's playing really well. I mean, they're giving up runs, but they're scoring a lot of runs too. So this will be a good game against Georgia Tech. Then they play South Carolina, and then they start Sun Belt play at South Alabama. Or sorry, home against South Alabama. Yep, Miami versus UCF, top 28, according to 64 Analytics, top 25 matchup. So we'll see. Again, like I think Miami, listen, they're entering the gauntlet now. And like you got to take it week by week, right? You got to take it weekend by weekend. And you literally, I mean, their best shot at winning a series is probably this weekend against Wake, who's undefeated in the ACC right now. So a good time to give Wake their first loss of the year in ACC play. But really, Miami's season is going to be heavily based on how they respond these first 3 series. So again, even if you end up 3-6, the first 3 series, then you have a lot of winnable series coming up after that. So if you can go 3-6 minimum against Wake Forest, UNC, Florida State, you're in really good position. Really good position. It ain't going to be easy, though. It ain't going to be easy, right? We know that. It ain't going to be easy. Let me see. I had a bookmark I wanted to talk about. Will the bookmarks work? Bookmarks are not loading, unfortunately. maybe if I favorited it. Maybe I favorited it. Is that going to load? My likes. All right, let's look at University of Georgia, because they are obviously crushing the baseball right now. And I told you guys before the season starts, and Zach, I know, tweeted at me this morning basically saying, "Hey, Kyle was right. This is what they're doing." But talking to Brock Bennett before the season, he said, we're looking to hit home runs. Like we're gonna hit extra base hits. That's what our offense is gonna be like. They actually are surprisingly running a lot, like stealing bases at a pretty high, a really high percentage, and at a decent rate. How many games does your high school team have this week, and against who? It's spring break this week, Kane, so we have none. We'll have 3 next week, but we have none right now. But we're 2-0 in region, 2-0 in region play. All right, let's look at University of Georgia. All right, so University of Georgia, some of these numbers are crazy. So you look at Ryland Zaborowski right here. He's OPSing a nice 1,700, hitting 447. He's got 4 doubles and 10 home runs, 36 runs driven in 15 starts. He didn't start one game, which not sure how, not sure why. But even better, he's got 11 walks to just 9 strikeouts so far. So he's not only is he driving the ball, but he's getting on base. And then you have Robbie Burnett behind him, who's hitting 375, OPSing over 1,500, 3 doubles, 1 triple, 9 home runs, and 10 stolen bases in 12 attempts. 19 walks to 9 strikeouts. So this team is walking at a really high rate. If you look at the numbers, they have in 19 games 127 walks, 50 hit by pitches to 136 strikeouts. So they're really doing a great job of getting on base, and they're not really they're striking out at a very low rate. So this is a scary offense, and just to boot, they have 30 stolen bases at 34 attempts. Look at the extra base hits. They have 86 extra base hits in, let's call it 20 games. So they're averaging close to 5 extra base hits per game. And they've scored 185 runs in 19 games. So they're scoring right at 10 runs per game. 203 hits. So they're averaging more than 10 hits per game. All in all, I mean, this offense is clicking on all cylinders. They're crushing it as an offense. So again, when your offense is this good, your pitching doesn't have to be great, but let's look at the pitching. And again, that competition hasn't been superb for University of Georgia. Their WHIP as a team is 136. In 162 innings, they've struck out 204 batters to 87 walks. So they're walking about two or one base runner walking one hitter every 2 innings. 133 hits given up in 162 innings. So the pitching staff's doing totally fine. Again, if their numbers held up like this and their offensive numbers held up, which again, the offensive numbers will certainly regress towards the mean heading into SEC play. But this is a scary offense to play. I mean, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got 5 hitters in the lineup that are everyday players that are OPSing over 1,000 right now. I mean, 10 home runs in 15 starts is crazy. 9 home runs in 18 starts is crazy. You know, that's basically like the equivalent of hitting like 40 to 45 home runs in a 60-game season. And 9 home runs in 18 starts, you're hitting 30 home runs in a 9-game or 60-game season. So this offense is scary. Very scary in the SEC. But the question is just how much of a regression happens in SEC play. Because right now, Georgia's, if we look at Georgia's schedule, pitcher's nightmare. Yeah, and again, like they haven't really faced anyone. We'll pull up the schedule. I should have pulled that up before I exited out. But let's pull up the schedule now, and we'll just see. Okay, like what's the competition look like? So East Tennessee State is Tuesday. All right, so they beat up on Quinnipiac. UNC Wilmington was their only loss of the year. Beat Kennesaw. Swept UIC in a 4-game series. Beat Georgia State. Swept Florida Gulf Coast. Actually, but Gulf Coast played them close in 2 games, right? Swept them in a 4-game series. Close in 3 of the 4. 4-3, 9-8, and 10-9. Beat High Point. Beat Georgia State. Swept Columbia. And then they open up against Kentucky at home. And remember, Kentucky's, based on the metrics, is way higher ranked by 64 Analytics. They're not even ranked by D1 Baseball. But again, the SEC and the ACC are very similar in the sense that you just don't really have any. There's like very few series where you're like, okay, they have a realistic chance of sweeping. Every series is basically looked at as a split. And Miami dominated FGCU. Yeah, so like Georgia, again, you're going to see probably some pitching regression, and the question is how much does the offense regress in conference? It definitely will. Like we saw Georgia Tech's offense, obviously at Virginia Tech, whose pitchers are way better than people think, and in some cold weather, not put up as many runs as you would think. So those numbers are going to come down a good amount in conference. So is the pitching going to be able to hold up for Georgia in conference play against the Tennessees, the LSUs, the Floridas, the Alabamas, the Ole Miss? Like, I mean, every team in the SEC, right? So that's going to be the question for Georgia. Even though, again, like you started out 18-1, they're doing plenty of fine right now. have not really played anyone. Yeah, they haven't played anyone, which is fine. I mean, there's a lot of teams that really haven't played anyone. Um, but this is again like, but the thing is like all the SEC teams right now you see that are like 17-1 and 16-0, and like the reason right now why the SEC is just like completely filling up the top 25 wherever you look is because a lot of the SEC, not all of them, but a lot of the SEC teams haven't played anybody right now. And the issue is once SEC play starts, those records are all going to start getting bulldozed, right? Those SEC records are they're going to start splitting weekends every weekend. And so the records are going to regress back to the mean. What happened with that Duke team? Well, let's look at Duke right now. Let's look at their numbers. We're gonna be. This is called Kyle Wren Analytics, not 64 Analytics. We're doing the Kyle Wren Analytics. Let me pull up their stats. So Duke is 10-6 right now. And again, this was a preseason. I think they were number 9 preseason. They're 10-6. Have really kind of struggled since the open of the season. Even though, again, like when you look at their numbers offensively, they're OPSing 956 as a team. Where are they struggling, though? Okay, 132 runs in 16 games. So they're averaging about like 7 to 8 runs per game. Decent amount of extra base hits. They got 31 bombs, 28 doubles, 6 triples. So you got, 65 extra base hits in 16 games, which is good for basically 4 extra base hits per game. Slugging percentage is really good. Base percentage is 429. They're not really stealing any bases, so they're kind of a one-dimensional offense. If they're not driving the ball, they're not going to score as many runs. They do have a lot of walks, so their walk rate is very good. Strikeout rate's fine. 25 hit by pitches, so the offense is doing a good job. But let's see what's going on with the pitching. So as a team right now, 1.5 WHIP, 5.13 ERA, more hits given up than innings pitched. 162 strikeouts, 144 innings, like it's decent. You got 63 walks in 144 innings. So they're actually, by the walk numbers, are doing pretty good. But then you add on 24 hit by pitches as well. So you put that, let's just put this up to 186. Or sorry, not 24 to this, 87 free passes in 144 innings. And then all of a sudden, you're averaging more than 1 free pass per 2 innings. And then on top of that, the hit. So their whip is a little high. Opponent batting average is a little high. Again, Duke has played some better competition than other teams. But, if you look at their pitchers, their starting pitchers are all kind of struggling. Like you look at Andrew Healy's 196 whip, 7.27 ERA. James Talon, 2.1 whip, 5.4 ERA. Ryan Higgins, 1.65 whip, 5.4 ERA. Like this is the best starting pitcher's numbers right now for Duke at a 1.65 whip. And then you have Kyle Johnson, who is supposed to be one of their best arms, 1.7 whip, .998 ERA. So like really for Duke, the issue has been the starting pitching. The starting pitching has just not been able to go deep in games. Again, Kyle Johnson not averaging not even 4 innings per start. Andrew Healy is averaging just over 2 innings per start. James Talon is averaging. He's got 3 starts. He's been kind of more of an opener. I mean, 2 innings per start. And Ryan Higgins is averaging like 3 1/3 innings per start. So their starting pitching is just not going deep at all in games and giving up a lot of runs and hits and walking guys. So then you have a lot of innings on your bullpen. So the starting pitching for Duke has been the real weakness. Afternoon, work's getting busy. Missed the first hour. Well, dude, that's not acceptable, Zach. Not acceptable, man. We just were talking about Duke and really just looking at the numbers. They're really struggling in the starting pitching department. Like I talked about it yesterday with Georgia Tech. Like Georgia Tech, if you're looking at the team, everything looks really good except for your Saturday and Sunday guys, right? That's like for Georgia Tech, you're like, we're happy with the offense is elite right now. The bullpen, quite frankly, has been elite, or at least really good. Your Friday guy has been good. Really, the only thing you're looking at on Friday is he hasn't really gone super deep into games, but his performance has been good in the innings he's pitched. But then on Saturday and Sunday, and I'll just pull it up for you guys to see. High school team's looking good, Coach. We're 2-0 in region. I think we're 6-4 right now. 4 of our losses to schools a lot bigger than us pre-region play. A couple of those losses probably shouldn't have happened, but we're playing really well as we started region play. So let's look at these numbers for Georgia Tech. Again, offensively, 50 doubles. I think they're leading the country in doubles still, or right at the top. 4 triples, 23 home runs. Not nearly as many home runs as maybe you would think. But again, when you're leading the country in doubles and you're walking at a high enough rate, you're going to score a lot of runs. Up and down this offense, you just have a bunch of guys hitting over 300 and really slugging the ball. They've also stolen 36 bases and 41 attempts. So they're basically stealing over 2 bases a game. So that's another dynamic of this offense that's kind of new to Georgia Tech. And you look at the pitching staff, guys, 4.2 ERA. I think the whip is probably around 1.4, 1.5. We probably have total, when everything's said and done, there's probably 5 guys on the roster that are college guys. 1 kid is committed to Kennesaw State. 3 of the juniors are probably going to be committed this summer to Division I. Yeah, I have 2 guys on Pensacola State, Zach. Will Barter and Taft Middleton. But so back to Georgia Tech. So this is the issue where it comes for Georgia Tech. So right now, Brady Jones in 4 starts has thrown 12 innings. So he's averaged 3 innings a start. I don't even think he went 3 innings against Virginia Tech. The bright side on Brady Jones, if you're looking at it, is he's only given up 6 hits in 12 innings, which is really good. He does have good stuff, but he's walked 12 in 12 innings and he's hit 3 batters. And he's just not going deep in games, right? So, and how many transfers are we expecting to join Mark Pope and Kyle Wren? I don't know. I have nothing to do with the school. I'm just like a community coach that gets paid a stipend. Are your clients going to transfer in since you are now a coach? I doubt it. I doubt it because the school I'm coaching at's a private school and it's very expensive. Like, yeah. So I don't expect it. I don't expect that to happen. Thanks, Zach. I appreciate that. That'd be great. So Brady Jones, at least like the caveat is he's not getting hit. He's walking a lot of guys, but he's not getting hit, and he's striking out. He struck out 18 in 12 innings. So you're probably going to give him a couple more chances before you think about doing anything. Riley Stanford, in my opinion, is probably the guy you see maybe even this weekend get moved out of the rotation because he's thrown 15 innings. He's given up 18 hits, 12 walks, and 8 hit batters. And his opponent batting average of 316. Again, you add up all those numbers and you're just like, this ain't going to work. Tate McKee has averaged just under 5 innings per start. You'd like to see that number go up a little bit. Like if he can go 6 innings per start, you're ecstatic about that. I don't think he's ever going to be, just based on his pitch mix. I don't think you're ever going to see him go like 7, 8 innings. It's going to be tough. Unless he really, like, first time through the order is throwing heavy fastballs and heavy strikes. I think he was about a 50% strike rate this weekend against Virginia Tech, and he was, out in the 4th inning or out in the 5th inning, didn't complete 5 innings. But he's not walking a lot of guys, 8 walks, 26 strikeouts, just 16 hits. So he's doing well. Y'all have a chance to win the first 3 series, Virginia Tech, Pitt, and Notre Dame. Yeah, like Georgia Tech's ACC schedule is actually very favorable. You don't face Florida State. You don't face UNC. Like you said, Zach, the first 3 series are realistically, you should be minimum 6-3. I think Virginia Tech was like going to be the toughest one. You expected that to be a split series. But with Pitt and Notre Dame, you feel like if you play good baseball, you have a chance of sweeping. I think the question becomes, does Tate McKee go deep enough in a game where on Friday where you don't have to use Mason Patel? Patel threw 4 2/3 innings on Friday, so he was done for the weekend after that and just really dominated. He's dominated every appearance. But if you can save him for Saturday or Sunday to piggyback off of one of these two when things start going awry, you feel really solid about a potential sweep, because then the rest of your bullpen arms like that threw yesterday, like Jalen Payton, he went 3 innings yesterday for Georgia Tech, maybe 4, gave up 1 run. And the rest of these guys, Caden Gaudette, Caden Campbell, Sam Swigert, Brett Barfield, like those guys, you have those guys with Patel for game 2 and 3, you're in a really good spot. I do think maybe the best option to you almost don't want to move Patel because he's pitching so well in the role he's in. Like, he's more valuable pitching like that all year in that role than he is moving him to a starting role, and all of a sudden he's not the same. So I think if you move Riley Stanford, you maybe go to a Carson Ballard who has, listen, he's gotten hit and he's given up a lot of runs, but I think he's not a guy just stuff-wise that his stuff kind of plays down out of the bullpen. I think if he's a starter and he's really allowed to kind of face guys that first time through, like, he's going to be more effective. So I don't know. We'll see. But I think you're gonna probably maybe see a change this weekend. Our governor is giving any kids in the state of Florida $8K a year towards tuition to attend any, I think you said any school. Let me see where this is at. Well, I'm going to say this, Keynes, just so you have an idea. That's not even a third of the cost of the school that I'm coaching at. So if that tells you anything, do you think the D3 or smaller schools will get better because of the transfer portal? Yeah, for sure. Just because there's less spots at Division One now, and I think kids are waking up to the idea that it's just much tougher at Power Four schools in general. So to not just to get there, but to actually play. So I think kids are going to be, if not now, they will be soon more open to the idea of going to D2, D3 than they have been in the years past. Plus, charter schools like Doral Academy and others are taking the talent from them. My private school will never have an issue because we are a factory. Coach K, every single level will get better because of the roster size cuts from 40 to 34. That means 6 players from each D1 team has to hit the portal, meaning everyone will move down a level. Yeah. And you're going to have, again, for the fall, you're going to have a max roster size of 38. So you're going to have 4 guys hitting the portal after the fall's over from D1. Agreed. Do Southern schools recruit Northern kids much, if at all? Yeah, they do. Actually, like, there's a lot of really talented pockets up in the Northeast, like in New Jersey, New York. Like, dude, Duke recruits a bunch of kids from the Northeast. Georgia Tech recruits a bunch of kids from the Northeast. Vanderbilt recruits a bunch of kids from the Northeast. Typically, like in the Northeast, they really value. There's a higher percentage of parents and players that really want a good education. So your Dukes, your Georgia Techs, your Vandies do really well in Northeastern recruiting. So 100% Northern kids are recruited by Division One Southern schools, without a doubt. Again, you have to be talented enough, but they don't care where you're from. If you can afford the tuition after the scholarship, they want you. And we work with a lot of guys in the Northeast and the Midwest that I've gone on to pitch at play at Tennessee, UNC, Arizona State. UVA is also active in the Northeast. I just wouldn't categorize UVA as a Southern school. I think once you're in Virginia, like I would still categorize North Carolina as Southern, kind of. But for me, Virginia is like mid-Atlantic. So it's not really the South, even though it kind of is, if you know what I'm saying. But I get your point, Buck. They do, and again, there's more schools than the ones I listed. Like and that's why what's tough, when we talk about recruiting, like schools on the West Coast that are very have kind of gone downhill recently. Like Kane said, Miami's heavy, New York, New Jersey, PA, Connecticut. A lot of these schools in the Northeast have struggled as well because these kids in the Northeast that are really talented, they don't want to play in a cold weather environment. They're like, I want to go down to Georgia, or I want to go down to Tennessee or Alabama or Florida and play in warm weather. Right. So like it's again, those northern schools, it's just tougher recruiting because the southern kids do not want to go up there typically. And the northern kids are like, I want to go play in warm weather. So it's not just like, there's less loyalty to the region, I feel like, in the Northeast than there is in the Southeast, if that makes sense. And same on the West Coast. You were right about Georgia hitting home runs. Yeah, man. I mean, that's what their coaches told me, right? Their coaches were like, we're just gonna hit extra base hits, and they've actually stolen 30 bases as well. So they're actually moving around the base paths as well. But like they have couple, their home run leaders got 10. Next guy's got 9. I mean, they're hitting bombs, man. Georgia's lifting off. And the question for Georgia, Zach, is once conference play starts this weekend, how much do those offensive numbers continue to – they're going to regress for sure, but are they still going to be tops of the SEC in offense? Someone from that area will always be in our classes. Yep. Tim Schreck, good info. Thanks, man. Yeah, no problem, dude. Good question. Too many ties to Miami. Diamond Pros, a facility in New York, is run by a former Miami alumni. Well, yeah, that helps. We usually recruit a lot of his players because of the connection. Our best pitcher, Gage Zeal, came from his facility. Yep. Yeah, and just again, like you think of like I remember the guys I played against, like Kevin Zomack, who went to Vanderbilt. He was from, I think he was from the Northeast. You look at Georgia Tech recently. You had shoot, I can't remember the guy's name now, but if they had two or three guys from New Jersey, um, like you said, Canes, like that Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New Jersey, New York area has a lot of really good players, and they all want to go down south. Any predictions for SEC play? My predictions are: I think Tennessee at home beats Florida 2 of 3. Um, that's my prediction there. I think, shoot, I mean, maybe Mississippi State. I think I'm going to take Mississippi State over Texas. 2 of 3 in Starkville. I got Georgia beating Kentucky. 2 of 3 in Athens. I got Auburn over Vandy. 2 of 3. I have Alabama over A&M at A&M. Arkansas over Ole Miss. And I got South Carolina over Oklahoma. I mean, LSU over Missouri, but that's kind of, again, I think that's what most people expect to happen. So I think there's going to be quite a few. I think there's going to be quite a few upsets in the SEC, like we saw in ACC play to start. I got Mississippi State over Texas, Auburn over Vandy, Alabama over A&M. I haven't checked every ACC roster, but I've looked at quite a few, and every one has 1 to 3 New York, New Jersey players on it. Don't forget also a lot of DR and PR players in the New York City area. 4 of the top 20 and 13 under are in New York City. Yeah, you're right. There's a big population of Puerto Ricans and Dominicans up there that are really good. Of course, LSU starts with Missouri. Yeah. Carson Ligon from Miami transfer from 2 years. Is he ready to lead Mississippi State in SEC play? I believe he's the Saturday starter. We'll see. We'll find out. They're at home, so they got an edge. Place is going to be packed. I don't have Boston College beating Florida State. I know they beat Virginia, but I think Florida State has a realistic chance of sweeping Boston College. But we'll see. We'll see. I won't bash him on here, but what he did at Miami, we are not fans of him. Well, I get it. Then you not wanting to support him. It's tough in the transfer area, man, because you are in the transfer era because you do have a lot of players that, again, they are transferring to get money, which is, you can't really blame them for it, but it just sucks for fans. BC takes 1 of 3. One of 3 from FSU. Okay. I don't think it's out of the realm. I just think like Florida State's strength is its elite starting pitching. So again, it's gonna be tough if you're gonna beat Florida State. Typically, from what their starting pitchers have done, you're gonna have to beat them late in the game. So you're gonna have to put up runs on the bullpen. That's tough. So if they get out to a big lead early, it's just tough to make a comeback against them. Just a tough team that can grind out runs and not fun to pitch against. Yeah. But the problem is, like Florida State's guys, they don't walk guys and they strike a bunch of dudes out. So it's uh, like Florida State, like they just have all three of their guys are complete starting pitchers. Nothing to do with that. He had an injury, I'll just say that, and didn't play the rest of the season. We hosted a regional and could have used him. Oh, yeah. I get what you mean now. All right, so let's look at Florida State's numbers just so we can have an idea of just how. All right, so leading the way for them offensively is Alex Lodi's. Obviously, Kyle Lodi's cousin from Georgia Tech. He's also the shortstop, killing it. Really similar numbers to his cousin. But looking at their offensive numbers, they're hitting 345 as a team. A lot of extra base hits. They're OPSing right at 1,000 as a team. So all in all, very good. And let's just look at the pitching numbers. Jamie Arnold didn't even throw last weekend because the last game got canceled. I don't know why he didn't throw Friday. I think he was sick or something, and then they just decided to give him a break, and then they didn't play Sunday. But Wes Mendez, 20 innings, 35 strikeouts, 3 walks. Joey Vellini, 1.16 ERA, 23 and a third innings, 35 strikeouts, 4 walks. So I think they each struck out 11 in their games. And so Wes Mendez is averaging 5+ innings a game. Vellini's averaging basically 6 innings per game, right under 6. And then Arnold's averaging 5 1/3 per game. And those numbers are all probably going to increase as they get to deeper into the season. So, I mean, it's just like the numbers are unbelievable. Like 35 strikeouts in 20 innings, 35 and 23 and a third. They don't walk anybody. And they've given up collectively in, let's call it 40 innings, 60 innings. They've given up 14 extra base hits. Which is actually interesting. They've given up, when they do give up hits, they do seem to be extra base hits. Like 50% of the hits given up for those three have been, or sorry, not 50%, but right close to it have been 19, 35. So 14 of 35 hits have been for extra bases. Would you pitch him against Florida and skip BC? No, I would not. One, because it messes up. You just want to keep him on schedule. So with him, I think he throws Friday against Florida. He's probably going to throw he's probably going to throw like a 1 or 2 inning bullpen on Monday or Tuesday, maybe in like an inter squad situation, but you want to get him off the mound early in the week just to get him feeling good. And then he'll pitch Friday, I would assume. You don't pitch him on a midweek. It's just not worth it. Because like if you dominate ACC play, you're a national seed, right? So that's all that really matters. And the other guys will just be, instead of 7 days rest, they'll have 6 days rest, so they'll be fine, right? I think we talked about it last night, but like everyone talks about pitch counts and durability and stuff in college, but they forget that these guys starters in college baseball get 7 days off. They're pitching every 7th day. In pro ball, you're pitching every 5th day. So you get 2 extra days rest in college baseball. So these guys they're fine. Buck, are you feeling like UCSB is the best mid-major on the West Coast? 13-2 so far and big Friday night starter. Yes, I think for sure, Buck. I think they're definitely the best mid-major on the West Coast, without a doubt. I'll be right back. 1 second, guys. All right, back. Sorry, I had to take a piss so bad. But this is what I mean by this is what I mean about Florida State is like these starting pitchers' numbers are just ridiculous. Like it's not like again, it's not like oh they're yeah their pitching's pretty good, but they haven't faced anybody. Like their pitching is dominant, like just straight up dominant, missing bats, super high K rate, like elite high K rate, elite low walk rate, elite low hits per innings pitched. Like it's just across the board, every number is really good. So, and then their bullpen's really been lights out too. Like their bullpen guys that have thrown have been really good. So just all in all, I mean, they've struck out 181 and 132 innings. So it's just across the board. Their pitching's so good, and their offense has been really good too. So their pitching's like super elite, and their hitting's like right on that elite category. But it's been not against a lot of good competition, so we'll see. The more you pitch under Kyle's, did you see NC State pitcher threw 130 pitch complete game on Sunday? No, I didn't. I didn't see that. But again, like I like 130 pitches this early. Maybe it's too many. But again, is he like a freshman or is he like a senior who's basically as old as like a lot of guys in professional baseball? I don't know where the line is and how many pitches you should throw in a game. I can tell you that no one knows that line because we've protected arms for certainly the last decade and a half, and lowered pitch counts and lowered the amount of times they throw per week, and injuries have just gone up. So we really don't know what causes injury. Mechanics can be involved. But again, it's like you have people that mechanically you look at and you're like, this guy should basically never be able to pitch, and they'd never get hurt. And you have guys that have the really good mechanics and get hurt all the time. Less pitching equals more injuries, more pitching equals less injuries. Yeah, I think what happens is like your arm, you got to condition your arm. And I think right now we're throwing so little pitches that ultimately when guys do get ramped up, their arm's just not used to it, not capable of it, and boom, they blow out. Do I think you go to like Nolan Ryan throwing 200 pitches a game? Probably not. But it's, again, there's just like no one really knows what the line is. And certainly what we've done for the last decade and a half has not worked. More typically means more frequent versus number of pitches in a game, but the biggest thing is proper mechanics before you start throwing to that extent. Yeah, I think, no, mechanics definitely has something to do with it. Again, there's no really hard evidence about like, and again, like pitching, here's the issue with the whole mechanics argument itself is that pitching a lot of times is based on deception. And if you took a guy who is really good at an awkward and has an awkward throwing angle and doesn't look right and doesn't look clean and is going to produce injury, well, if you change his mechanics to the where he's not going to get hurt, he may not be effective anymore. So he might as well got injured, right? He basically didn't get injured by fixing his mechanics because now he's not the same guy. So it's tough. Like as a pitcher, you want to be deceptive, and you can't just take a pitcher's mechanics and change them so that he'll be healthier, but now he's not the same pitcher. He's not nearly as effective, so he's not going to play. So it's like, it's tough. It's rare to see a pro pitcher throw more than 90 pitches in a game. Seems like an unknown science. It really is. Right, Nolan Ryan didn't get hurt till he was 45 years old, and he was throwing like 200 pitches a game. So again, there's just it's tough. It's less about pitches per game versus how many pitches in peak high stress innings. Definitely, that's definitely the case, and that's that's old school, right? Leo Mazzoni would say that all the time. He's like, I don't really pay attention to the pitch count. I pay attention to how many high stress innings they had, how many pitches in those high stress innings. Um, again, because in a high stress inning, your heart rate's going to be higher. So it's going to take more out of you when you are throwing pitches than if you're in the first inning and there's nobody on base. It's just not the same. It's less about pitches per game versus how many pitches in peak high stress innings. 130 over 9 is 14 per, which is low. Exactly. Count the number of 25 pitch innings, which is more important to re-stress on arm. Yeah. And in pro ball right now, if you throw 30 plus innings in a game, in an inning, like they take you out. Like 30 to 35 pitches in a game, they just take you out. So I think you are right about that, Buck. Like the high stress innings thing is, to me, the most important. So if you're throwing a lot of 20 plus pitch innings, like you ain't gonna last long. But like you said, 14 pitches per inning over 9 innings is 130. But people would look at 130 and be like, "That's a crazy high number. He shouldn't be throwing that many pitches." Well, it's like, well, that's an average of 14 pitches per inning. Right. So it's just, again, we don't have we have no idea. And that the harder you throw, the more likely you are to blow out. And now with everyone throwing harder per se, like you're going to see more arm injuries. And it just doesn't seem like the protecting of arms by just like the pitch count number is actually doing anything. Certainly at a young age, you shouldn't be throwing a lot of pitches. Once you get into college and you've kind of developed into your adult body, that's different. I think that's when the strategy really should change. Once you're in college, and maybe not your freshman year, but your sophomore year, and you're around 20, I think it's more about, is your arm in the right condition to throw a lot of pitches, more so than like, hey, we got to keep his pitch count low. Good show, Zach. Heading back to work. All right, man. Have fun. Buck, you hope to average 15 pitches per inning. So doing that and having no innings over 25, you can go the distance or throw 130 plus. Yep. And I think that's what, again, that's an old school idea, because if you've pitched or you've played the game at a high level, you've seen enough to where when guys do have those high stress innings and throw a lot of pitches in those high stress innings, it takes a lot more out of them. Pitching is one of the most cardiovascularly intense things you can do. Most pitchers, when they are throwing, are upwards of 180 plus beats per minute. And in a high stress situation, they can get over 200. So there's not a lot of cardiovascular things you can do to get your heart rate that high in a short period of time. Definitely old school idea, but I have seen data correlating the high stress innings and injuries. No, yeah, I think that is true. My point was really about like just the generic pitch count. Like we got to keep them below 70 pitches or 80 pitches. It's like that's just too general for me and from what I've seen. I think you're right about the high stress innings, and that's something, again, like the old school pitching coaches said that for forever, especially with the 20-second pitch clock. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like in the major leagues and in college, it's all about, well, we're protecting arms, but we're making them pitch. We're making them throw pitches as fast as we want, right? So we want them throwing a pitch every 20 seconds, but you're protecting arms at the same time. So, 20-second pitch clock. Since the implementation of the pitch clock, arm injuries have gone up as well. So you can't say, well, we really care about arm health, but we're going to make them throw a pitch every 20 seconds at the same time. So, and they know that, right? So I think it's just kind of this fake, it's like this fake thing that like we care about arms, when in reality you're forcing guys to throw pitches at a quicker time. We had an issue with one of our freshmen, Lazaro Calera, sophomore and junior year. He was sitting 96, 98, and then his velo dropped senior year to 89, 90. What do you think happened? He's a freshman now at the U. He is sitting now around 93, 94 at Miami. He looks good. Well, I mean, he could have just had an arm injury, right? When you see a velo drop like that, there's definitely something going on. That doesn't just happen. So there's probably some kind of arm fatigue with not some kind of structural issue. And again, it doesn't have to be like a UCL tear. It could be something in the shoulder, meniscus thing. Like there are some guys that will have not a micro tear, because every baseball player has micro tears in their UCL and in their shoulder and stuff. So it's like when I always tell clients, when you're going to the doctor, make sure you deal with a doctor who's dealt with baseball specific arm injuries, because a regular doctor will look at a UCL from a baseball player and be like, oh, there's something wrong here, where every baseball player has micro tears there. So I'm guessing he had some issue in his shoulder or elbow that was causing that velo drop, because I mean, a lot of guys will have a velo drop. There are some guys who will even tear their UCL. It's different for everybody. Like some guys tear their UCL and they're on the ground and they're writhing in pain. Some guys will do it and they're still throwing. Is that overworked from travel baseball? Could be that as well. Could be overuse for sure. There's a lot of factors it could be, but overuse, you're going to see some velo drop, but it's not going to be like 10-mile-an-hour drop. So 10-mile-an-hour drop is usually a good indicator that there's some kind of structural issue going on. But like, a guy who's in the big leagues now, I think he's with the Astros, Mauricio Dubon. I was teammates with him in the minor leagues in AAA with the Brewers. And when he was traded over from the Red Sox, and he just getting a secondary lead tore his ACL. And he didn't go down on the ground. He was walking around. He just felt a little pull, really wasn't even in pain, walked off the field on his own power, like no indication that he tore something. And then they went and got the MRI and he tore his ACL. So I've seen guys tear their ACL and they're on the ground writhing in pain. I've pulled my groin and just collapsed on the ground mid-run. And then he tore his ACL and he was just walking around fine. So it's like injuries don't happen the same and feel the same with different players. So it's just sometimes you really just don't know. But all right, guys, that's going to be it for today. Tomorrow night, obviously, we'll have some midweek games. So I'll probably do a late night stream tomorrow after the games just to see how people did. And then we'll do one tomorrow in the